Ba ơi, làm nước tốt tối về thưởng cho.
How are you, Nam?
I'm fine, brother Hoa. How about you? Sometimes,
Like me,
yes. Pray
like me
for me,
too.
as long as I still alive.
ngayon. Doon tayo start. Okay. Okay. Let's see. 10 minutes. If it tastes good, I drink.
I hope not.
If it's not good, depends on the snacks. Okay? Hello. So we're going to start. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second day of our thesis defense of the St. Anthony Mary Claret College. Our presenter today is Seminarian Chan Van Ba, and his thesis title is The Good Life According to Kantian Ethics, a Critique of Utilitarianism. His advisor is Professor Anton Heinrich Reneslan. And our principal critic is Professor Paula Nicole Eugenio and Father Angelito Ancla as second critic and panel chair. So once again, welcome Ba. Would like to invite you now to start this presentation with a prayer.
Again, good morning, fathers and own brothers and mom. I would like to invite you to come to the prayers with me. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Come, Holy Spirit. We beg you, come to us and enlighten us. Come and take away our hindrance and darkness inside us. Under your help, we are able to recognize your will and courageously perform your intention to us in life. To know our identity as your servant. Thus, we may know you, then love you, then serve you as you deserved. We ask you through the intercession of our Mother Mary and your Son Jesus Christ, our Redeemer. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Again, good morning, fathers and mom and brothers. So, my title is The Good Life According to Kantian Ethics, a critic of utilitarianism. And we all know that to live a good life is a desire of all of us. The good life is a goal, but the question is, how do we gain it? Being aware of it, many philosophers would like to answer this question. Therefore, there are many ways and many methods to gain this. However, in this thesis, the researcher would present two ways, namely the school of utilitarianism and Kantian morality. Nevertheless, the researcher would incline to the way of Kantian morality. And in this chapter, I would like to present the problem. The whole thesis would answer a question. How does Kant's moral philosophy present a better image of good life than utilitarianism? For this, the researcher formulates three sub-questions. Number one, what is the good life according to utilitarianism? It presented in the chapter 2. Second, What is the good life according to Kantian ethics? This is presented in the chapter 3, and the chapter 4 we present how does Kant's moral philosophy with modern utilitarianism for the good life. So I would go to here is the conceptual framework. I would like to present here are two ways to reach the good life. However, the ways of Kant utilitarianism, if we see that toward the good life, there is a stop sign or the sign of ban. It means that in this way is inapplicable or cannot be possible. Another way, the better way is Kantian moral philosophy. It is a better way for this. So in the chapter 2, the researcher presents the good life according to utilitarianism. Utilitarianism is the ethics school that promotes happiness and escape pain for all the human beings and sentient beings. It takes the effects of action to determine the morality. There are three famous philosophers with the sharp ideas that the researcher would include in these research papers, namely Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill, and Peter Singer. Let's go with the Jeremy Bentham. Jeremy Bentham is known as a founder of this school. He is very famous with the principle of utility. He says that nature has placed mankind under the governments of two sovereign masters, pain and pleasure. There are three noticeable points in his theory. Number one, the theory of principle is to show that humans are always in the slave or the passive position. Thus, the good life of a person must be fulfilled the pleasure and happiness and the emptiness of pains. The second point is that this passage indicates the rightness and wrongness of the action is totally depend on the effect of the actions. The third one is according to Bentham, physical pleasure and intellectual one are the same and quantitative. That is the reason why later on he formulates the calculation of the pleasure and pain. What is the problem of this theory? The flaw of this theory is humans are always in the passive position. They have no capacity to create oneself because of the two sovereign masters. Second one is John Stuart Mill. John Stuart Mill still holds the ideas of Bentham in terms of morality. Consequence of the action determine the means and the morality. Besides that, the theory of the greatest happiness principle that Mill formulates stress on the end. So it means that all things must focus on the ends of happiness and the happiness of overall. Therefore, one must do all things for this goal. So the good life must be the end of goal of happiness. Another point is that, unlike Bentham believes in the quantity of pleasure and pain, but Mill believes that the good life must sacrifice the higher pleasure or intellectual satisfaction. And for him, quality of the pleasure is more important than the sensible pleasure, and cannot be calculated. If we have to wait for the end of life and to know what is the morality, is that too late? And it is also the shortcoming of this theory. It is to make a person's confusion, risking and unsure, because a person cannot know what is the real morality until the end of life, and it is too late. And other factor is that one cannot aware of own objective factors. to gain the consequences. The third one is the Peter Singer. He was a contemporary philosopher, and the preference principle of him is tries to expand the interest of all beings, not on only human beings, but also the other species. Thus, in this case, abortion and infanticide and euthanasia is moral. Thus, we can see that Singer has the broad view of utilitarianism, so in which the interests of all beings are evaluated as human interests, because the animals also have the capacity to experience the pain and pleasure. So he saw that the way of human cheating animals, like in the experiments or killing the animal, is just the discrimination of the races. So this theory has the flaw is that there is no real reverence of life in the moral actions. So, and the third one, the third chapter, I would like to present it in the good life in the view of Kant's ethics. The researcher would present three main points in the Kantian ethics, namely the ontology, goodwill, and categorical imperative. So first one, the ontological theory. Moral action has a value when one acts according to duty, and regardless of outcomes, inclinations, and emotions. According to him, the core of duty is to respect others' humanity. Thus, Kant asserts that human inclinations, emotions, and consequences play no role in judging the moral actions. That's why all the values of a moral action are determined in accordance with the fulfillment of duty. And all the duty are deprived from categorical imperative. And it is the absolute duty for human being. And in the next one is the goodwill. Kant explained that the will is a faculty of action in following the conception of law. When one makes an act, neither it can achieve what one intends or not, the goodwill is still there. The question is why? He answered that because the goodwill is good in itself. This character shows that even it is surrounded by many bad or negative intention and things, it is still there and it would still shine like a jewel for itself, as something having its full worth in itself. Another one is good in its willingness, meaning the immediateness of the action. The goodwill is as striving itself to face the adversity. It is a sign of virtuous person if one does action from the goodwill constantly. It also shows that what kind of people we are. Therefore, everyone ought to have the goodwill to satisfy one's moral action. Thus, goodwill determines the moral goal of an act. And the third one is Kant present here is the categorical imperative. The term categorical imperative means the absolute order, which takes no account of individual situations, personal differences, and extenuating circumstances. He formulates the three principles in categorical imperative, namely the principle of autonomy, the principle of law of nature, and the principle of end. So the principle of autonomy Kant claims. We should so act that we may think of ourselves as legislating universal laws through our maxims. What does it mean? It is understood as a self-law making, and from this, it would be universalized without exceptional. And autonomy is a self-rule, self-determination, and self-ownership. It contains in itself as moral universal characteristic. Kant sketches on element in this principle. Kant sketches one element in this principle is the element of freedom. Without freedom, one cannot gain this autonomy. The second one is the principle of nature, the law of nature. He says, act as if the maxim of your action were to become, by your will, a universal law of nature. This state expresses here that a moral agent ought to act corresponding to the law of physics, and these such laws are not eternally conflicting or self-defeating. It contains that if an action is morally right, then it ought to be consistently imposed to everyone. No exception. Everyone should act as his or her action should become a universal law of nature. Last one is the principle of end. Kant says, so act that you use humanity, whether in your own person or in the person of any other, always at the same time at an end, never merely as a means. In its ethics, it is wrong or impermissible to use the others as a mere means, because when we use a person as means, that the value of that person depends on us, and we take their right of rationality away from them, and it is immoral. In the chapter 4, here is the good life according to Kantian ethics, a critique of utilitarianism. A Kantian ethic first is critique of Jeremy Bentham's. The concept of autonomy and freedom of Kant criticized the passive position of human being in Bentham theory. So Bentham holds that all beings are always under the yokes of pain and pleasure. They control the own human do, what human do, think and speak. For Kant, the good life of humans must be freedom and autonomy. With these two, a person is able to create one's own self. It is impossible for man to have a good life under the slave positions of pleasure and pain. So, the good life is we are the authors of our life, not others. The second one is the critique of John Stuart Mill. The idea of goodwill and duty criticized the idea of Mill on the end of happiness. Mill believed that the good life must achieve the happiness at the end. Humans do not care much about the means at the end of life, but to gain the happiness. The consequence of action is when and where humans can be able to withdraw what is the morality. However, this idea confronts many challenges, and it puts humans in risky, confusing, and unsure situations during pursuing goal, the happiness. Because the consequence determine the morality, and we have to wait to the end, and it is too late for us in the daily life as well. For Kant, the moral guides must be determined from the very beginning by the goodwill and duty. This theory of duty and goodwill determine the moral value of actions, in which humans are morally obligated to act accordance with a certain set of principles and rules, regardless of outcomes. So, with this guide of Kantian deontology and goodwill, human are able to live authentically, confidently, and fully in the very present moment. And we have to not wait to the end of time or to the end. The thirdly, the Kantian critics of Peter Singer's categorical imperative criticize the disrespect human life in the preference happiness of Peter Singer. Peter Singer wants to promote the preference happiness for all kinds of being and a better world. The better one in his views, the better ones in his view is to have the poorer people to have a better life, and the non-human animal have the equal rights. To do so, he suggests the idea of abortion, infanticide, and euthanasia to human beings. And we can see here that the reverence of life is disrespected. The form of killing or the form of sacrifice are becoming moral in some cases when it helps the common good. However, Kant does not agree with this idea. He argues that the life of a person is irreplaceable or unique. Humans cannot sacrifice one life to gain the good outcome. Remember this. Reverence of life is the core of morality in Kant. Human beings must be the end, not other else, not animals and non-human beings. All other things are to serve this goal. Thus, everyone has the equal right to live. And for the conclusion, the utilitarianism wants to promote the good life that bases on pleasure and for the greatest number of people. When time more focus on the quantitative pleasure, meal concentrates on the intellectual and the go further, Peter Singer expands the utilitarianism in all beings. So, but they do not care about the means to gain this happiness, so we can use any mean for this, as long as there is pleasure and they will do it. And for Kant, there is a need for one to have a set of general moral standards in order to live a meaningful life. One just lives life meaningfully and authentically when he or she tries to be an author of his life. In order to do so, one is required to possess freedom and goodwill, goes along with performing duty and following the reasons. That are the surpassing concepts of Kant on the utilitarianism. And thank you for your listening.
Okay, thank you very much, Ba, for your very clear presentation. I would like to invite now our first critic, Miss Paula, for her questions and clarifications and other observations.
All right, so Mr. Pat,
Um,
congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am.
To defend your thesis on time, no? I would like to comment first and foremost your use of gender inclusive nouns and pronouns, no? And your discussions are very concise and parang it's well discussed. From your discussion on utilitarianism, Kantian ethics, every concepts were well discussed, and so that's a good point. However, I have to admit, when I first read your manuscript, especially on the first part, I really don't want to read it anymore because your chapter 1 is very presumptuous. You made a lot of presumptions in your chapter 1 that I felt like this thesis would kind of disappoint. However, as I read through it and as I reach your conclusion part, your chapter 5, I realized that there are some things that we just really need to change. Okay? So, yeah. Let's go dun sa technicalities later, no? But I only have one question. This question will somehow kind of um, confirm or disprove my first first assumption regarding your thesis. So, is doing or following the categorical imperative easy?
Category imperative is easy. This
Is
is
it
not the
easy to
question.
do or is it easy to become your guiding principle?
Actually, if we see it in the daily life, it is seemingly difficult for us to apply. However, with the with the with the will or with the what is implanted in us, we are able to do it.
With the concept of goodwill, no,
Goodwill,
it
yes,
will
ma'am.
be easy if we know the goodwill, it will be easy. So you're saying that in our everyday life, it's not easy to follow the categorical imperative, right? That's what you said. So does that mean that the good life is only for the few?
Only for
The few.
other
Just you,
things.
just Father Lito, just Sir Anton.
No, ma'am. It's as according to Kant's view, ma'am, all of us it has the capacity to live this to live this ethical life. Why he says that? Because he give us that what is implanted in us, that is the reason, that is the goodwill, and that is the duty. That is why all of us are capable of living ethical life.
So your answer to my question and your findings are the same. However, it really contradicts your chapter 1. Because when you go back to your chapter 1, you mentioned that it is the only way to attain the good life. Specifically in your conceptual framework, when you go to your conceptual framework, di ba may stop sign doon? And you mentioned in your conceptual framework narrative that this schematic is showing the ways to reach the good life. However, the only one can be a tool for man to get the good life is the theory of Kant's moral philosophy. This is the reason why I told you that I felt that your thesis is presumptuous because you already claimed in your chapter 1 that Kant's moral philosophy or the deontological ethics is the only way for us to reach a good life. So, for example, I cannot really practice the categorical imperative every single day, in every single decision that I make. Therefore, I'm not capable of having a good life. If that's it, that would be the assumption if I will only read your conceptual framework. However, as you go through naman in your chapter 5, you were able to really somehow present the idea that you can mix, di ba? Yung parang in your findings, if I'm not mistaken. In your findings, you said you emphasize the idea of freedom, of autonomy. So I like your findings because it's really straight to the point, especially the last part. Yung sabi mo, a good life must be a combination of goodwill, intention, reasons, and consequences. In each situation of life, we should be flexible and determine what is truly right and really wrong to act properly as a person with ideal of building a better world. So, um, what I have or what I got from this part is that you're not really um, taking away the idea of having or getting um, parang good consequences out of your actions. Kasi di ba, when you discuss Kantian ethics, when you discuss deontology talaga, we do not look at consequences. It's always about the motivation. Why are you doing this? Kaya nga dun papasok yung goodwill, di ba? So basically, in your chapters 4 and 5, you were able to kind of mix them together. However, in your chapter 1, yun talaga yung pinakamagulo or somehow confusing because in your chapter 1, there's an impression that you are really against utilitarianism, that it is not capable of giving us a good life. Okay? But, di ba, it's kind of parang contradictory if you will say that the utilitarians cannot have a good life because they are just after pleasure, happiness, utility. But basically, those things can be or can constitute a good life, happiness, pleasure. Would you consider a good life na walang happiness without happiness? Di ba hindi? So, that somehow, yeah, that's something that you have to think about.
Ma'am, I would like to clarify this uh, in the utilitarianism way. As I just present in a while back, that is there are many ways to reach the good life. However, in this thesis, I would show two: is the utilitarianism and Kant's morality. However, I would say that uh, the better way to live to live moral life is follow the Kantian morality is the better way than utilitarianism. Yes, ma'am. This is my clarification for
Yeah, so you're saying that both can achieve good life,
Yes,
but
ma'am.
you are trying to say that the Kantian ethics is a better way. Yeah, it's clear in your chapter 1 also. However, when you go to your statement of the problem and the objectives of the study, no, this one, uh, kasi Kantian ethics, utilitarianism, they are ethical systems. They both have the same bearing, right? It just kind of puzzled me. Bakit mo sinabi? Why did you say that this study seeks to demonstrate how Kant's moral philosophy disproves utilitarianism in terms for the good life? Yun. So, my problem here is your wording because you're using strong words, but in your discussion naman, it does not appear as is. You have a different way of presenting your findings. You presented your findings in a very mellow way. You did not disprove utilitarianism. You kind of adapted some of the theories of utilitarianism, but the with more emphasis lang on Kantian ethics. Okay, so that's the only thing that I want you to think about. Siguro your wordings. Your wordings. Do not use too strong words uh, to drive your point. Okay, I'm not sure what word can you use in place of this one kasi I don't think you're disproving. You're not disproving the utilitarian way to the good life. Somehow you're criticizing it using, yeah, you said a critique, no? So you're criticizing, but not necessarily disproving. Because disproving, if it will be the objective of your study, if you want to disprove utilitarianism's claim to the good life, then your thesis did not achieve that goal or that objective. Okay? So, ayun lang. For the other technicalities, grammar, syempre, it's a problem in grammar. And also the use of different words. There's this part that you said. I think you're giving an example. And with the one David's name, you use David as an example. And then as the start of your sentence is to apologize, and then it's a discussion. So I was thinking, did he mean to explain, to expound, but not to apologize?
The word apologize there is to prevent, to protect, or to a mean of protecting of the idea. It's not about apologize that I am sorry, something like
So
in
it's
the
like the apology of
yes, ma'am.
apology.
Yeah.
Okay, so siguro you do not kasi iba yung apologize the sa apology that
Yes,
we
ma'am.
are that you are talking about, no? So do not do not use kasi in my when I read this, bakit siya magsusorry? Lagi na lang ba tayo nagsusorry? So lagi na lang ba? So um yun. So be careful with your words.
Yes,
Be
ma'am.
careful with the words that you are using in your thesis because that's one of the major things that I spotted. Another is the one in your abstract. The word yearling. I think you're talking about yearning. Go back to your abstract. It's the first sentence. Each person is yearning for a good life. So it's yearning. Okay. So you have to be very careful with the words because a simple word, a simple mistake in the wording could change really the idea of the sentence or the thought of the sentence.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. But other than that, I like your thesis because as I've mentioned, it's well discussed and it's easy to understand. No, you were able to kind of simplify or present Kant's theories in a simpler manner that I hope you understand
Yes, ma'am.
because it's very important that we and also the point of your thesis, no, the good life. It's nice. It's a nice topic, and yeah, that's it. So
Thank
thank
you,
you.
ma'am. Actually, I would like to say this in the chapter one. Actually, I wanted to correct it. However, at the time I was in quarantine and I get fever, and even I am submitting early. That's why I not.
You
Thank
can
you, ma'am.
always change it after the trip.
Thank you, ma'am, for your suggestion and help.
Thank you very much, Professor Paula, for those very good observations, and that I'm sure that will improve your manuscript, no? And how your thesis becomes more focused and relevant to your title itself and how you really intended it. No? Okay. I also see your thesis well organized. No? It's easy to understand. There's a good flow of ideas, and I can see that you understand what you are writing based on the flow of how you are discussing the different topics, and it also helped me understand better Kant, his philosophy, especially about categorical imperative, which I often hear from our students. So it's good to see here how it is distinguished from hypothetical imperative and categorical imperative. Okay, now you're talking about you're trying to critique utilitarianism using Kant's ethics. What's I'm just trying to teach you with this. No, what's wrong with having pleasure? I mean, we all want to experience pleasure in life. The reason why we are having mission in the church, we have all this charity work, And the church has been organizing, really having institutions in order to alleviate the suffering and the pain of people. So, what's wrong with utilitarianism, and how come that there's what do you see, if because it seems you're saying that there's something wrong with this. So what's wrong?
Actually, I would like first to answer you in the two points. First point is that the pleasure is not bad. In our daily life, that all of us we would like to we normally like to use it to have the pleasure in life. However, in the other way, that for Kant's perspective, he thinks that the human just looking for the pleasure because of the sinful nature, and because they looking for the pleasure, that's why they always incline, and the human becomes slave of the pleasure. That is the main point of the Immanuel Kant. Because if we always search for the pleasure, meaning to say that we are in the prioritized position. We're always looking for this. That's why we become a slave of the slave of the pleasure. For Kant, to overcome that sinful nature, or to overcome the prejudice of the pleasure, we have to do it with the duty. That is it is not including the sentiments, not including the emotion or prejudices. We go back to the original things. That is the difference. Actually, there is no wrong with the nature. But the problem here and the wrong here is we become too depending on the pleasure. That is wrong in the pleasure, Father.
Okay, thank you very much for clarifying that. You're trying to say that yes, it is a human desire to experience pleasure, but that's not our end in life. That's not That's not our purpose here. Just to experience pleasure. There's also a sense of duty, and you are saying that it is when we fulfill our duty with reason, with goodwill, that we experience good life.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, how can now, in for in your own words, how would you summarize good life according to Kant?
Yes, Father. If I would say that in my own words, that if we want to have the good life, we have to do what is the good motivation together with the duty. However, to be able to do that and it become a good life, we have the freedom to create our own lives, and we have to follow the categorical imperatives, meaning the universal law. That would be the better word for the good life according to Kantian's view. The freedom, reason, duty, and the good motivation or the goodwill.
Okay. In Kant's ethics, you mentioned about human life, human dignity. Can you just how is human dignity important in Kant's ethics?
In Kant's moral views, the human being is human dignity.
Human dignity.
Yeah, human dignity is very important. Why? Because it is the center of all morality. Morality must be concentrated on the human dignity. That is the reason why he disagree with the Peter Singer about the disrespect of reverence of life. Human dignity here is cannot be replaced and cannot be if I lose it cannot be understand other things. If I lose this one, I can replace by other. But human dignity is also we cannot replace. And actually, I add in my thesis in the view of Pope John Paul II that even though we are lacking something, but when since we was born, the dignity is already us. Even we have no capacity of no hands or rational, human dignity is still there. We cannot get anything from the human dignity.
Okay, thank you very much, Ba. I think because yeah, that's really at the very core of how we are going to define what good life. And when we put our standard of what good life, not only to our own selves and to others, no, and for the whole society, human dignity is at the very heart of it. With the respect of human dignity, and the use of right reason and goodwill, of course, then um, life would be much better. Even if, and that's how we try to respond. No? And that is also our one of the criterion on the parameters of experiencing pleasure and pain. No, we always look at human dignity. We cannot be uh, enjoying, experiencing pleasure in life, but stepping on the dignity of others. Okay, so thank you for answering that question, Ma'am Paula. Do you have other questions? Okay, so thank you very much, Ba, for a good presentation of your thesis and for answering well our inquiries. We thank also, of course, his advisor for guiding him very well. Okay, thank you. So we'd like to invite everyone to leave the room for a while as we evaluate
Okay, so congratulations, Ba. We already have your grades here. So we will be giving you the corrections and other things that you have to do. I think your note taker had written all those things, and you can improve more your thesis. So your thesis is approved with minor revisions. Congratulations.
Thank you, Father.
So you are given 1 to 2 weeks to finish your final draft. Okay. God bless you. Thank you very much. And I hope you learned a lot from this experience of writing and defending your thesis.
Yes, Father. I have learned.